we'll make sure anybody who can't make this one can watch so we talked about pedestrians, heavy vehicles, construction sites, generally about road safety audits and what they are, and have been looking at some common themes and principles around how risk is presented on the road network. And we have two more specific road users or user groups that we need to cover off. And we are really just sort of switching a light bulb on in people's mind to remember to think about the needs of all these road users, give some basic insights. So we've got cyclists and motorcyclists today, and I'm going to try and leave a good portion of time at the end for us to take you through in detail what you're going to have to do as your road safety audit, because we are at the meaty end of this course, and you're going to actually have to roll up the sleeves and do some work shortly. Okay, so we're going to go through just general requirements for safe travel for cyclists, and I'll point you at some technical information you can look at in a lot more detail if you want. And as I usually do, I'll show you some common road safety audit issues that pop up for people that ride bikes. And we'll talk about some of the cycling infrastructure terminology. I'll pop this up for a bit of general context. There are many different sort of lists like this people will make, and different design guides around the world and those sorts of things. But separation, clear sight lines, space to ride, smooth surface, speed maintenance, connectivity, and information, all good things to be considering when we're trying to improve safety for cyclists. But as a road safety auditor, you want to think like a cyclist, and that's actually usually quite easy for most auditors, or a lot of auditors who are either cyclists or have been. You're asking yourself those sort of questions you see down the bottom there. Will I feel safe? Am I in the dooring zone? Will people be able to see me and the like? But we actually need to go beyond that as road safety auditors, and we need to think about the fact that there's quite a variety of people that ride bikes. And some of you are probably very familiar with the sort of 8 to 80 design philosophy, which is if you design your street network for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, you should cater for pretty much your whole community. And that's good. And it works really well, actually, in my opinion, for pedestrians, as long as you're also considering people with mobility needs and the like. But for cyclists, that's another good portion. But we find that design for an 8-year-old and 80-year-old is sometimes not used by your lycra-clad cyclist or your bike courier style cyclist or the like. So we even have more variety within that, and we're seeing lots of deployment of cargo bikes and all sorts of other stuff. So it's a very varied road user group, and us as auditors need to try to contextualize that for the project and look for risks associated with these sorts of things. It's a bit of a challenge, but the one advantage we have is there is quite a bit of guidance, both in the Austroads guide and then state guidance from around Australia, and then around the world there's some really good guidance as well. So as I showed you, the back of the Austroads guide to road safety part 6 has the prompt list, and there's one for cycling and pedestrians. So that'll ask you a whole lot of questions that you can think, oh yeah, okay, have I thought about that? Have I thought about that? It's very helpful. The VicRoads has this old shared path audit guidelines. It's 2012. I think it's still pretty reasonable document and relevant. It's about how to go through the road safety audit process on a shared path and some of those specific needs, because you can undertake road safety audits of bike paths, shared paths, and those sorts of facilities. It's the same process. And just pointing you quickly at documents you're probably very aware of, the Australian Guide to Road Design Part 6A, which is paths. And that document with grey on it. Cycling Aspects of the Australians guides is just a collection of a whole lot of different cycling related stuff, which is good. You've got your Australian Standard 1742 for bicycle facilities. Part 9 is bicycle facilities. Series of Vic Roads documents. Melbourne City Council released a bike lane design guide document. And, I'm just sort of scratching the surface of what's out there and available. If you want to go international, get yourself the Crow manual. It's the bike infrastructure design Bible. It's excellent. It's from the Netherlands. They do a good job. And a few other ones which are particular around safety auditing from a cycle perspective, which are good. So I just put them up there. If you want to dig deep, you can grab any of those and get into it. All right. Straight off the bat.
Ken,
oh yeah, hello.
Sorry, Ken. Before you go on, we've just had a question. What is the hierarchy of standards and guides to use? I'm not sure who's answered that one, but I know you've just been chatting about it. So,
okay, that came in the Q&A. I see it.
It's
there.
in the Q&A. Yeah. So
yeah.
I don't know if that's
okay.
already been answered or not.
Yep. No, that is a fair question. So what is it? Jurisdictional supplements trump Austroads guides. So if you have a like a TMR document, trumps the Austroads guide. So the Austroads says something, and then the jurisdiction says, well, Austroads said that, we're going to do this. The Australian standards is a bit blurrier. Most jurisdictions avoid conflicting with the Australian standards, so they do pretty well in that sense. The Australian standards, you don't need to do that. It's my understanding that a supplement will override an Australian standard as well. So it's basically, if you've got a local jurisdictional note from TMR or the Department of Transport or anything like that, that is the document that takes precedent. So this one, I mean, it's pretty obvious, and the photo does a good job there of telling the story, but longitudinal grades are an issue, particularly specifically for cyclists, because as a rider, drops their wheel into that, the rider will come off. I have not seen a longitudinal grade put in a design that I've been on an audit team sort of looking at for, I can't remember, like 15 years. But I do see them out there in areas where there are road upgrades happening. So by that I mean, it's existing longitudinal grade. It's been there for a long time, and they're doing alterations to the intersection, or they're diverting cyclists through that area for one reason or another. And that's where you would be hopefully picking these things up as auditors. So one example, again, this is an incident that occurred, but we can learn from it. There was a big shopping centre development happening in the southeast suburbs of Melbourne, and they were putting, expanding, but then they were putting bike parking facilities and like a tyre pump station and those sort of things. And then they were doing some signage off a shared path that was sort of running nearby and directing cyclists into the shopping centre via that way. And through the car park, the way that everybody would have to go on their bikes was straight across, I think, 4 longitudinal grades of decent size, car park style longitudinal grades. And yes, somebody went in to one of those at dusk and seriously injured themselves. And there was a legal case, and you know, the developer had to pay up. So yeah, it would have been ideal that a road safety audit would have been done. It's a bit of a one where people scratch their head, and well, I was an expert witness in this case. So and I sort of explained that it, you know, a road safety audit, you know, technically wasn't required as part of this, specifically under, you know, the planning permit or anything like that. So but there would be an expectation that somebody would consider the safety of users entering and exiting like that. And I actually said in the thing, I said, in the road safety audit course, the first example I give when I'm talking about cycling safety is longitudinal grades. It is like a 101 of cycling safety. Anyway. Now this one maybe common is a bit generous, but this is a road safety audit finding I have seen a few times now. It's the placement of bicycle storage boxes. So this is, they're adding bike storage boxes, except for the road here runs a signal phase where the drivers are coming out, and they also run a left arrow in. And of course, if you've then put a bicycle storage box there and you've got bikes that have come up and stored in front, there's the possibility that they get hit. Now, actually, in an audit, we were doing an audit of this actual job, and we found that issue. We had a good bit of debate about how to risk rate this, and in the end, we actually just made it to note. We just thought it was, we didn't think anybody would miss this. Like, if there's a bike stored right in front of a vehicle there, they're not going to sort of run into the back of them. And it became more of like, oh, there's going to be like road rage going on here, and people will be getting annoyed, and then the bikes will. So, but it was a bit blurry to me to be able to write that exact crash. And you remember I told you when we're working through that formula, issue, crash, risk factors, and guidelines if applicable. That crash one, I just didn't have the clarity of something I reasonably expected would happen. So we ended up going with the to note, and of course it was fixed. I mean, it's wrong. If they built it, there would be there'd be a lot of complaints immediately. But yeah, anyway. Okay, so we're going to get. I'm going to ask you a quiz. This is not a poll one. This is actually, I'm going to show you a picture, and I'm going to ask you to find the issues. So I'm going to get you to do a little bit of road safety auditing, existing conditions, thinking about cyclist safety, and I've gone abroad for this one. I'll give a prize if you can tell me which country it's in, and that is not Bulgarian up there. Oh, okay. Kim gets it with Wales. Now, prize there, Marissa. Now, everybody, back to looking for issues you might bring up in a road safety audit. So you're asked to do a road safety audit of this shared path facility. Let's see what you come up with. Okay, so we've got some good stuff coming in there. Well, this is good. Yeah, and I think it's a bit hard to do from just a photo. You'd love to get out there and you'd be able to find more things and the like. This is excellent. All right. So let me summarize a few of these, and Marissa, you're going to have your work cut out for you here, trying to because I just told you all about longitudinal grates, and the first person who found that one can have a prize, because it's exactly what we were just talking about. Longitudinal grate. It's actually, it's not a longitudinal grade for bikes going this way. But it's going to be bad for the actual bike facility. So that's one. Well done. The other ones, there's some people talking about signage, and that's an interesting one. A lot of people talking about this sightline impediment, this fence. So you're coming up, and there'll be vehicles coming through here, and I suppose the question you may pose is, well, they've put a cycle dismount sign, haven't they? So, okay, is that then alleviate the issue? And I really want to firmly remind you that auditors are there to tell them, what is likely to cause death and serious injury. Not, technically, if everybody followed the rules, this should be okay. Because nobody's going to pay any attention to that. Like, cycling dismount signs are the most useless sign you could possibly put out on the road, in my opinion. I can't think of a more useless sign. But if anybody can think of a more useless sign, I'll take it or send a photo for me. But like, when you see something like this, you just shake your head and think, well, what are we? Possible use is that. So be realistic and just understand that we want to try to actually address the issues. So for something like this, I think you're picking good issues. I like the fact that some people are, having a think about the slipperiness of the tactiles, or will that destabilize other signs in the right spot, and these sort of features. It'd be good to come back at night and just see how well that's all lit up. But really, as an auditor, you would be suggesting opening up the sight lines. Now, you might be saying, well, hang on, that's going to be very problematic, isn't it? Because that's somebody's house and the like. But you can suggest these things. And certainly then, though, I would always be looking at some alternatives for them, because I think we're pretty aware that that could be a very hard exercise and they may not be able to do it. So, could we raise this? Could we put priority for the bike path? Would that help? Could we slow the vehicles coming in here? I mean, you can't see what it's like, but, could we put speed cushions or speed hump on the approach here? Could we actually deviate the path? Could they deviate the path over here if it was that important? Lots of issues. Maybe we'd create a sightline issue there with this building. So, the point is that there's lots of ways we can reduce risk. But well done, good spotting, everybody. And in a similar vein, and a reason I sort of thought of this audit that we're doing for a local government, we identified that it's a big development and a subdivision, and they decided to do a shared path facility right up on property boundary. And as a result, some of the houses had their garage there, and then they had high fence right up to the shared path here. So a cyclist, could be riding along, and then there's no line of sight to see a vehicle exiting, and vice versa. So identified that, wrote it out, as you can see, put in there the recommendation to try and get those fences down. I mean, that one there are bigger ways to do that, but I just thought it's probably not going to be reasonable to say shift your whole shared path out so there's buffer area. Anyway, the interesting thing about this one, and this is a wider road safety audit learning for you as going into auditing, was that at that point of handing this one over, the council said, this was amongst many other issues. They said, thanks for the audit. And yeah, we're happy with all of them except for A1. And we asked you to reissue the audit report with that removed, please. And I said, no, we can't do that. And they said, well, but that's part of our structure planning guidelines or whatever it was. I can't remember the exact term they used, and it's been approved in that configuration. So there's nothing we can do about it. I'm like, I really understand the conundrum you're in, but it still has to be in the road safety audit report. And yeah, so they weren't happy, but that is an example that these sort of things do happen. People requesting you remove stuff because it causes a headache in the rectification of the issue. It's still an issue, you put it in, and then this is the area they get to respond. If they've got other ideas on how it could be addressed, you may decide you want to integrate some of those into recommendations. There's nothing against that in a road safety audit. It's where they actually say, remove this whole thing because it causes us trouble. That's the no-no. So surface deficiencies like, different potholes or surface lids or any depressions or these sort of things, they present a hazard when a cyclist hits them, as is very obvious, but also as an auditor, you should be thinking about where are we going to change the riding line? And so they will, most cyclists will avoid this. They'll see it, they'll move into another area. These ones are probably okay, but it may push them into more dangerous areas. So that's something to consider as well. Generally in auditing an intersection design, for example, one thing to look at is, do lane lines line up? And this occurs quite a bit where they don't, and it's for a number of reasons. Sometimes they're adding extra lanes, they're trying to squeeze things up, move things around, they're adding a tram super stop in the middle of the road, and the configuration of lanes get out of whack. And so you can see, like this one, for example, it's got the through lane, so the left lane sort of goes onto the footpath, and the middle or the right lane, I suppose, sort of directs at the left lane here. And what we know is, we are going to see sideswipe incidents happening here where this vehicle sort of just half tuned out is going to the lane that's directly in front of them. And this one's coming to try and come in. And of course, we're going to have sideswipe style crashes there. And that's one audit finding, and you bring that up, and it's usually a lot. The severity is minor or lower because it's sideswipe crashes with vehicles. But it's when the bike gets into this mix is a really hazardous thing. Bikes are always going to be the ones that come off worse when it's car versus bike. Now, the ultimate here, if we could do it, is to have your bike sort of almost come off and go back on. What we're sort of referring to as protected intersection style stuff. Very, it's challenging from a design perspective and a funding perspective and all sorts of things like that. But that's that would be our preference. Getting lane alignment's going to help. Again, can be challenging. The use of RPMs, which are the dots, in the right spot between all the lanes and correct direction of travel. So that's RPM, raised pavement marker, not RRPM, which are the square ones. These are dome-like ones. We also have that real challenge of an intersection where there's a stand-up lane, and then it goes. So by stand-up lane, I mean, so here you've got one sort of lane of coming in. You've got parked cars. And then at the intersection, you see it sort of two lanes. And then it goes back to the one and going out there. So we call that a stand-up lane. It's got that additional thing. So again, we've got all these cars coming out of here and they're concentrating on accelerating and merging and all the like. It's a bit of a mess there for any cyclist that's up in that area. And again, these sort of protected intersections help significantly. Separated Copenhagen-style bike facilities are great, and I'll show those later on. For this, they really eliminate this issue. You can give it a head start to bikes as well, so they can get a little run out the front. Particular signal lantern for them. A few things, but it's a very challenging scenario. Okay, so roundabouts and bikes has been a hot topic of interest for actually quite a long time now. So there's been a lot of work and research done into what provides high levels of safety for bikes. And the Austra's guidance changed at one point in time. It used to tell you to push cyclists, like on an urban roundabout like this, push cyclists to as far to the outside as possible. So you can see here that try and get them to do that. And the theory, back then was, okay, well, that'll keep them away from cars as much as possible, so that'll be good. But what actually seemed to happen, there was a lot of cars sort of would push past a bike because there was a bit of space, and they clipped the bike rider and all sorts of things. Also, when vehicles came up to here and they were looking out their open sight lines, there's got to be a study on the look but fail to see phenomenon, which the behavioral psychologists love, which is where the driver looks, clear sight lines, everything like that, cyclists coming up in the bike lane and far to the left, but the driver then just proceeds and hits the cyclist. Lots of in-depth academic stuff around that whole phenomenon of look fail to see, if you're interested in it. But yeah, so they changed the guidance to suggest that if you've got these scenarios, that you should be trying to get the bike to claim the lane. Claim the lane is the term that's used. And just come forward. So you can see that's more a setup that Australia would currently talk about. Anybody know the name for that little doohickey? A little bit of line marking. Yeah, it's a Sharrett. Tom's on it. Quick as lightning there. Makes sense. It's like a shared arrow mashing of those words. And yeah, the idea is that cyclist gets in the middle, that no car's going to try and overtake them through the roundabout because they've claimed that lane. Better vision spot for drivers coming up from the side road. Now, it's a decent setup for a low speed road for a confident cyclist, but it's not. You're not going to send an 8-year-old out to claim the lane over four-wheel drives and things like that, are you? So we can do better than that. Actually, one thing I really enjoy, if you do have these scenarios, you put a speed cushion here. Yeah, because what it does is actually, if there's a battle for front positioning, it works that the vehicle slows right at the point for the bike to go there. Oh yeah, Edward's pointing out that kids can ride on the footpath. Anyway, that's right. Yeah, it's a good point. I'll show you some designs where you don't have to have them mixing on footpaths as well. That can be really good. 2-lane roundabouts, problematic. Maybe I'll come back to 2-lane roundabouts. There's a sneaky wally in there. I'm going to come back because here's one I thought after Edward's comment there. It's the idea that you provide that separated facility around the outside of the roundabout, and you give priority to cyclists and pedestrians through the area. So that one's down at Moray Street in Melbourne, or South Melbourne area. Some of you have probably ridden it. And that works really well. And that is your sort of gold standard in terms of catering for bikes safely through urban roundabouts. The site had some advantages in terms of the space they had and a few other things, but we are seeing more and more of these now sort of being designed up and retrofitted, or if new roundabouts are being built, this sort of facility. It's all inspired by the Dutch, the way the Dutch have done roundabouts for many years. So we are seeing, and it's very exciting, a lot of projects now for to try to encourage more people to ride their bikes and make it safer for bike riders, for problem areas. And road safety auditors get involved in this, and we provide that advice. And the thing is, we are there to check for safety. So a project that encourages lots more people to ride a bike is great, unless it causes safety issues. So we're there to make sure, yeah, let's try and help get this project in, but we have to do it safely. So this one was a very interesting one to look at. It was proposing the addition of this little thing, amongst other things, 2-lane roundabout, which makes it problematic, and there's no recommendation to put sharrows to claim lanes in these sorts of environments. So they're very problematic in all sorts of ways, especially for right turner cyclists, because you've got to have to navigate across multi lanes. And so they're making this little spot for a cyclist to do essentially a sort of hook turn. They can pause there, wait, and then when they saw a free gap, go. Now it's kind of a popular cycling route, so that's why they're doing it. But the cyclists that are out there are generally recreational cyclists. Then there's more than one of them usually, and so that was an issue. Well, you're not going to store more than one in there, and if you try and store more, that's going to cause other issues. And also, even just like if larger vehicles are coming through here, and then we know there can be a little bit of tracking over these areas, often unintentionally sometimes, but you really just wouldn't want cyclists to be just sitting out there in that spot, potentially, be clipped or the like. So I think the intention was good. It just doesn't seem to, from that safety perspective, make that much sense. So this is another one, and at design stage, it all looked pretty good. So you've got the shoulder with bike lane, sort of bike lane shoulder style area. And then on the approach to the roundabout, it's a P intersection roundabout. So they had a cycle facility. And so cyclists should be able to be separated away and ride on straight through. Hasn't catered well for the right turn. That's a very low use movement in that. So it looks all good, and the design, you go, well, that actually looks really, really good. The post-opening audit, though, you get there and you go, oh, okay, built that facility, and I'm not sure cyclists will actually know that they're meant to ride on that. A cyclist may come up there and then go, oh well, that's the footpath, and battle it out in the roundabout. So you've sort of lost all of that safety advantage. A little, bike only sign, but it's hard to tell. A small bit of green on that, I think, would have just done an absolutely beautiful job of showing that that's where riders should go. Now, that's not the intended use of green markings on our road network. So green was always to be used originally for conflict points between cyclists and vehicles. So a vehicle approaching a conflict point would see the green and go, oh, there could be a bike, coming through this area. That was its original intention. Over time, it started to be used a little bit to guide a cyclist in a particular spot or direction, and so it gets used a little like that. And here's one where it's sort of guiding cyclists to try and get them to go and use the underpass rather than going through the intersection. You can argue it's a bit of a conflict point with pedestrians as well, but that's more of a guiding tool. So dooring is the phenomenon of a door opening in front of a cyclist hitting the door, and then being injured from that, or hitting the door and falling into the traffic lane and being struck in there. And we've certainly seen quite a bit of trauma to our community with these types of crashes. So they are highly problematic on roads where you have those parked cars. A road like Sydney Road here is really hard because it's also a clear way. So to do a whole lot of marking on a bike lane at that spot would it's kind of in the middle of the running lane during a portion of the day. If you've got permanent parking or the like, you can mark it. But again, this is not helping out a lot. The issue is really still there. Might highlight a little bit that there are bikes, but it's not really cutting it from that, fundamentally removing the issues. But these types of setups are the gold standard in terms of creating facilities where dooring is less of an issue, providing cyclists that dedicated facility. You've got to think about sight lines getting for drivers coming in and out of these. Certainly, one little trick I like to do, or I recommend it in order to these types of facilities, is to create some sort of thing there. Use bluestone, or you could even do some sort of I've seen raised features put in there, and it's to slow that vehicle down at that point, and so they can't take a fast run through there. So that's a one to keep in your back pocket as an auditor if you've got one of these facilities. I think Tom's rightly pointing out that there are these door markings on Sydney Road to try to remind drivers, and they do end up in the middle of the running lane. They're not bike lane markings. They're just trying to add attention to that. So when you've got a shared path or a cycleway crossing a road, because they inevitably do cross roads, we in Australia these days are signing it like that. And what that does in a theoretical sense is creates the shared path as a road, and this is an intersection, and the shared path is the priority road. So this is like any intersection where you don't have priority and you come up and you stop. That's the theory behind it. That's why that sign is used. And you want to do some pretty you want to be rigorous with your sightline checks on this. And there's a really good Victorian document that steps you through sightline checking at shared paths. Questions come in, why not just make it a zebra crossing? So in some jurisdictions, this jurisdiction, for example, you're technically not allowed to ride a bike across a zebra crossing, like a wombat crossing. It's a shared path, so you've got to be able to continue to ride. It's ridiculous. I think it would be much easier if we just allowed or gave an exemption for bikes can ride over pedestrian crossings, because you wouldn't have to have this new convoluted thing. But anyway, that's It is what it is, and that's how you see them out there. We've got a link to a safe system snippet there, some ride throughs you can watch and the like. Yeah, sight distance. Ensuring you get good sight distance is important, and there's ways you can check that. And just another one on this is to think about this crossing in the context of other crossings either side of it and further down the road. Are we gonna provide consistency, or is this going to be an out of context thing? And does that present any issues? So local area traffic management it's an interesting one because we love it because it slows vehicles down, but sometimes you create squeeze points for cyclists. So your traditional one-lane slow points or your chicanes, even urban roundabouts, they're often squeezing the cyclists in with cars. And this is where, if you're auditing a local area traffic management scheme or the like, have a think about maybe potentially recommending some of these sorts of treatments where you've got bypass facilities for the cyclists, so they're not caught up in the squeeze point with the cars. Think also about the ways you can configure roundabouts and the others. Good point about you've got to think about try and think about maintenance, street sweeping, and you've got to think about where these are placed, and all this stuff's placed in with driveways and those sort of features. So I suppose the luxury a little bit as auditors as we can recommend, and then the designers and project engineers can nut all of that stuff out. I'll give you a break in a couple of minutes. I'll just show you the shared path audit. Shared path audit guidelines is a pretty good document. So shared path audit, there's a bit of a practice of how to do it, and we've got a fact sheet on this that we provide to you, but you essentially ride the route. I tend to put a dash cam on the bike, and then on my back there is an electronic level, because you want to check the grades of some of these paths entering and the like, and you have a measure as well, and you're out there looking for paths with challenges, obstacles, hazards, horizontal, vertical alignment, and surface conditions, quality, all of that, and intersections as well. They're interesting. Here's a little bit of advice for intersections, but as an auditor, you can see, well, there's a photo from Bendigo. We were doing a shared path audit throughout the city, Greater Bendigo there. It's a new bit of path, and it was just unclear as to who has priority. And it's fine if it's there's nobody there, or very occasionally one person's there, but there will be times when you've got commuters and you've got others coming in, and there just could be some confusion of priority. So you want to be clear on that, clear sight lines, advance warning if it's needed. If it's not clear that there's an intersection there, sign guidance. Ideally, you make it at 90 degrees, a bit like a normal intersection. Why intersections can cause similar issues as there are on roads, and then trying to keep speeds appropriate through the intersection. Another one, just example here of a confusion of priority as two paths meet. Edge drop-offs, of course, and hazards in the side of the road. Even smaller drop-offs, there's going to be dogs, kids, all sorts of things on these shared paths. So cyclists may need to evade at different times. And we think about hazards on the side as well. There is some guidance in Part 6A, the Australian Guide to Road Design, Part 6A, talking about these sort of path widths and offset hazards and slopes and those sort of things. And just general hazards sort of in the path and on the path, things like the rocks and debris and those sort of things. Is there a minimum bike lane width? Peter's asking. There's recommended minimums, but there's some, often it's just whatever you can fit in is where people end up. I'm just trying to think exactly where you find that. Some of you probably know in the group, because it's not in 6A, because that's just paths. I might have to have a look into that. Pedestrian fencing, sorry, not pedestrian fencing. Well, fencing, there are cycle-friendly fences, and there are not cycle-friendly fences like this one. And that's because you can catch a pedal or a handlebar and the like. So the cycle-friendly fencing has the rail at a shoulder height pushed out, so the rider will, if they have to hit that, they should hit it with their shoulder and not catch those foot pegs. Now, we'll often separate a shared path from vehicles using a barrier system, and that's great for safety perspective from those vehicles not being able to hit the shared path users. The back of the barrier system presents a snagging hazard, or if a rider's to connect with that, there can be some pretty serious issues. A couple of cases against local government have occurred on that, and so something to be aware of and to think about as an auditor. And again, when you're recommending stuff, you can either recommend things like back-to-back barrier systems. There are some plastic products, there's post caps and different configurations that local governments have used, or state governments for that matter, have used to try to lessen the impact. And if you are putting something in the path, we really need to make it highlighted. Ideally, you don't put things in the path. Sometimes it's unavoidable. But at night, this would be just, you wouldn't see it. I think somebody's tied that bag on that chain just to warn other cyclists, possibly. So something like that is far better if you have to have a hazard in the path. So some approach line marking, flexible bollards with retroreflective delineators. I think it's generally a good setup. And there's a fact sheet that I mentioned, which is in the learning management system, which you can have a look at. Just give some hints and tips around those cycle-specific audits. Let's pop up the quiz, Marissa, if you've got it ready, the poll. Again, you're not going to get marked on this, but a couple of questions, and oh, my slides went forward there. Which of the following is not a common cyclist requirement in infrastructure? What is the name for a shared space arrow? Oh, okay. Well, you pop your answers in there. You are about to have a break. Actually, we'll let it roll on with the quiz for our break. So take 4 minutes, answer the quiz, have a stretch, fill up your water, and we'll get back into it in 4 minutes' time. Let's get back into it. Let's end that poll, because I think I've had plenty of time there. Didn't quite get everybody, but okay, sharing the results. Which of the following is not a common cyclist requirement in infrastructure? Cadence. Cadence is a cycling term, so there you go. That's what might have tricked you. Cadence is how fast you're pedaling. And the others are And sharrow is the term we use there. Most everybody remembered sharrow. Okay, let's get rid of that, please. And, oh, I didn't even change my slides over. Stop sharing there. And now, are there any questions that have come in that I need to deal with, Marissa, at this stage, or can I start talking about motorcyclists?
No, I don't think we've got any questions. There was a little bit of discussion on the minimum bike lane widths, but other than that, no, I think we're good to get on to the next topic.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to talk about now another two-wheeled road user. Well, occasionally they're three-wheeled, but this. But yes, so we're going to talk about motorcyclists. Yeah, right into the chat if you're a motorcycle rider. I wonder if we've got any. I'm a licensed motorcycle rider. I'm not an active motorcycle rider. I got my license, did a little bit of riding, but I don't do it anymore. Okay, two. Oh, we've got two. There we go. Well, you'll have some good input for this, no doubt. So a bit like bikes. Oh, there we go. We've got four. Incredible. That's good. That's going to be helpful. Okay, so a bit like bikes, we're going to, as in push bikes, we're going to talk about those requirements, motorcycle safe travel and technical information that's available, and common audit issues and some treatments. Tony crashed on the black spur. You're not the only person, Tony. Many people. I've done 2 motorcycle safety infrastructure projects on the black spur in my career. So there you go. Maybe an indication that my first one wasn't good enough, but yeah, it's a dangerous little bit of road. And motorcyclists are 20 to 30 times more likely to be killed and seriously injured compared to a car in the same travel, and that's due to that vulnerability, the inherent instability, the smaller nature of it, and like any road user, there's behavioural issues as well. But there's plenty of riders who are very diligent and doing things as safely as they can, and there's that inherent part of it. Now, unlike cycling, there's not a lot of technical guidance available for motorcycle infrastructure. Motorcycles are very often forgotten in this. Oh, that's a tricky wally, isn't it? That one there, if you're watching. Somebody's getting very tricky on us. So the Making Roads Motorcycle Friendly Guide is something that we produced when I was at Vic Roads about 20 years ago was the first one, and then there's been some updates since, and we actually just did a recent 2022 version of it. And what it is a document just trying to pick specific issues that are more hazardous for motorcyclists than any other road user. It's a pretty good document, and there's lots of them available from different jurisdictions, and they're all pretty much the same. But use the Victorian one now because, as I said, we've just recently done a big update of it, and it's got the latest and greatest information. All the other states and New Zealand are going to, slowly update theirs and copy the Victorian stuff. But yeah, that's a good one to start with. I like to think of the 5 S's of motorcycle safety when I'm auditing, thinking about the sight, surface, signs, strike, and speed. And I'll take you through these one at a time, but just a little reminder and to check I've got your attention back after your break. What is the formula for risk? Do we remember what the risk formula is? Talked a bit about this in module 1. Good on you, Tom is in there. Likelihood. Oh, hang on. Well, likelihood and exposure. Tom's off in the safe system assessment world, adding exposure in. The likelihood and severity, yeah. So the exposure and likelihood sort of combined to one, and just called likelihood, and then severity is that other aspect that we're looking at. So Marissa, you can work out who was first in there with either likelihood times consequence, likelihood times severity, or probability times consequence, probability times severity. It's the chance of a crash and then how bad the crash is going to be when it does occur. And so if we go back and we look at these, like providing good sight lines and the like, and the surface and the signs, they're all likelihood. They're trying to stop the crash happening. The strike is about the consequence, the severity of the crash, and speed it influences both likelihood and severity. Lessens the likelihood of a crash, lessens the severity of a crash. So it's a very powerful tool in road safety. So let's go through these briefly one at a time. Sight. The motorcyclists are smaller than even small cars, so they're easily hidden behind things that we may not think are sight distance impediments sometimes. Here, there you go, a little photo just taken to show that an even very small sign can block sight to a bike. Some of the bike in this one, just to show there is a bike there. Even vehicles themselves, and that dynamic visual obstruction is enhanced a little bit with motorcyclists just because they're smaller, so they're more hidden. So that's, drivers being able to see motorcyclists. We need the motorcyclists to be able to see what's coming up, or we have to really provide consistent, clear guidance through signage as to what's approaching and what should be done. So this is a curve that tightens. Now, does anybody know the technical term for a curve that tightens like that? So it's kind of like a hairpin curve. Alex has got it. It's a compound curve. And Brady was in there as a hairpin. You tend to just like it doesn't tend to tighten up. A compound curve has essentially two radiuses, or sometimes three radiuses, and highly problematic for motorcyclists because the rider will often take a clue on the speed and the line based on this curve, and then when it tightens up, they go onto the wrong side of the road. So here's a real world example of a sort of popular motorcycle route. A 252 radius curve into a 117 radius curve, so it's tightening up there. 4 motorcycle crashes outside of curve there. Now, this crash scenario is quite common for all vehicles. We see motorcyclists, it's very common. Cyclists very common too, and cars are involved. The cars tend to a lot of minor crashes. So which one do you think between 1 and 2 there is more often the motorcyclist as the vehicle involved? Yeah, it's 2. Well done, everybody's getting in there on the 2 bandwagon. That's right. Just because the motorcycle is smaller, easier hidden. I mean, the motorcycles could be either, but we do see this overrepresentation of motorcycles being number 2, and so that white Pajero sort of pulling in there would not have had any idea what was coming down the lane because of that truck blocking the sight. There you go. This motorcyclist was hidden behind the tree there, so that's just showing another sight line impediment. Okay, so motorcyclists lean when they are going around a corner or a curve, and the importance of the surface then is just hugely heightened, altered center of gravity, and it's all reliant on the surface traction there. And so the surface, so very important where a rider is leaning or braking. And yeah, we'd like it to be good everywhere, but those are the highest risk spots. So we want this type of surface with this good skid resistance, smooth surface, and good traction and the like. But unfortunately, we see all sorts of things out there, and I worked in an office once that had a thing they called the wall of shame of the roads that were being managed by that office, and that they couldn't quite keep maintained. So these photos are off the wall of shame. Yeah, depressions. So that's enough sort of bounces the bike a bit, destabilizes the bike. General blowouts, slips. So any time that we're getting these surface issues, and even thinking about construction sites and debris, mud, gravel, that they're all creating a slippery surface for motorcycles and push bikes for that matter, and just something we need to be aware of. Patching, connections of patches can start to break up in those lines exactly where that rider is. And if we're going to have these sorts of surface issues, we really need to have good advanced warning, because riders need to be adjusting to that. So sometimes we actually put surface plates on the road, as some of you may have done, but they will be very slippery and a hazard to a rider if it's a bit wet. And this, you might look at that and go, well, it's obvious, the rider's going to see that. Well, the rider may be following behind a truck, and it may be night, be a little bit rainy. There's less ideal conditions than this this picture. So we've got to think about that. Ideally, you don't have these in the road, but if they have to be there, there's skid resistant surfacing. Color them to make them a little bit more stand out, but yeah, try and minimize the amount of surface things. In a roundabout here, like you might get a roundabout design, for example, to audit, and if you're able to see at the design stage that there's going to be services in the circulating carriageway, well, motorcyclists will be one that will find that problematic. And because they're looking to see if any other vehicles are going to pop out in front of them, and there's a lot going on, and they're on a little bit of a lean sometimes, so it's just not a good scenario. So try to, at design stage, get those out of there if you can. So the surface wise, we can improve skid resistance all sorts of ways. You can investigate water blasting. There are high skid resistance surfacing like this one, which is available, expensive but available. And if we can do things like seal all the way up to barriers, it's going to help in terms of if a rider leaves the lane, they've got a bit of recovery area before interacting with a barrier. And I'll talk about barriers in a second. Curbing, important part of the road network. The more mountable the curbing, the better for riders, but sometimes you're stuck with what type of curbing you can have. But let me play this little video just to show you how small a lip can destabilize a rider. I'm not saying that there's anything particularly outrageous about the design here. It's more just to demonstrate a small lip. So I showed that video when I was in New Zealand one time, and they said, "Hey, bro, come and have a look at grab rails. We did it with PVC piping. It'll just break away." It's quite innovative. Not sure how it's going to last with UV light, but anyway. Wow. Okay. The painting on the road is something that you will undoubtedly see in a design as a road safety auditor. And when I say painting, I mean like big sways of paint for some reason. Like now, areas like this where, you know, riders could be leaning and they've got a bit of speed up, that can be a slippery surface. That can be a hazard. There's this excessive paint. The other one that I've seen now a number of times is that there's an intersection. It's usually in a rural or semi-rural environment. It's got an overshoot problem, so drivers are for some reason, you know, braking late and going through the intersection or missing it altogether. And so, in amongst the things to try and lessen that, they want to paint a big stop sign on the road or a big give way sign right at that point. Now, for drivers, that's probably, it might help out a little bit, but for motorcyclists, if they're caught up in that see-through effect or, you know, going a little bit faster at that point and they're slamming on the brakes because they've realized, oh my God, I got to stop here. Then we create this skid resistance issue right at the point that when they need it most. So just think about where line marking is and what's being used. So there are motorcycle specific warning signs that could be used. You may suggest that as an auditor if there's a particular issue that you believe is more prevalent for motorcycles, you want to warn them. That could be a recommendation. And you can see them out there. You know, it'd be better to get rid of the underlying hazard and issue, but if you can't, or there's a time between that happening, you can put up these sorts of signs, and just normal signage, of course, helps out. Okay, let's talk about now strike, and if we talk about motorcyclists leaving the road and hitting things, the bulk of it happens on the outside of a curve. So that's it's logical. I mean, it makes sense. For cars, it's actually about a 50-50 inside to outside of the curve, because a car will overcorrect. So if a driver goes around a curve a bit too fast, they might go out here and then overcorrect and go to the inside of the curve as well. Anyway, so outside of curve, here's one in New Zealand, and you know, you've got a bit of surface issue, and then you've got these concrete blocks on the outside of curve. So that's going to be problematic if a rider was to leave the road. It's not going to be great for a car, but it's probably going to be within survivable crash speeds for a car in this particular location. But even galvanized steel posts are a hazard for motorcyclists. We would deem them frangible. I mean, ASBAP and the jurisdictions deem a galvanized steel post as frangible, but that's for a car. We know that a galvanized steel post, like you can see holding up this hazard board or these signs, I mean, they are all strong enough to kill a motorcyclist. Car occupants, no. I mean, a little bit of bumper damage, but you'll be fine. So that's something, again, we need to factor in, and we need to think about it. Is it a very, is this a very popular motorcycle route, or is there a particular reason why we think motorcyclists are going to be more likely to, strike that area? And there are some things available. There's flexible sign ranges for low mount signs, nothing really for a big sign, and these aren't the best, but there are things that you can go into and look at. So motorcyclists lean going around the corner. So have a think about placement of furniture. I think this will be taken out by a truck before a motorcyclist, but before a motorcyclist hits it, but it's a bit sort of in that range there. And here's a staged photo of a motorcyclist going around a corner, and you can see them leaning in a bit there. So with strike hazards, we protect road users from striking trees and power poles and then going down embankments, those sort of things, using barrier systems. And they're designed very intricately and specifically, but for cars. So motorcyclists hitting barrier systems has been a topic of a lot of research over the last 10 years, really. And so it was discovered about 50% of riders hit the base of the barrier. They're off the bike and sliding, hit the base of the barrier, and the other half are on the bike and they hit the barrier and they go over the top of the barrier very quickly. So for the ones that are sliding, we tend to look at underrun protection. And that then acts that a sliding rider hits that and runs along it. So here you can see unprotected posts where the rider was sliding. Hit one of those, it'd be a very severe incident. If they hit this, it's less severe. It's not going to be, not going to be completely free of risk, but it's much less in terms of severity. And these can be retrofitted to existing W-beam systems. So there's products to do that. And all of the new flexible W-beam products have their own motorcycle underrun protection devices available. So there is actually a motorcycle crash test for barrier systems, and you get a crash test dummy, do a little bit of modification of it, and then it's slid at a barrier at 60 kilometers an hour on a little sled, and then they stop the sled and the motorcycle dummy continues on. So I'll show you that. The test, there's a couple of things you're going to do. You got to slide one directly at a post and then one directly between the posts. And you usually put your rub rail or your underrun protection on there. So this is directly at the post at 60 kilometers an hour. And the forces on that are unsurvivable. But with the underrun protection, it creates a survivable scenario for the rider. And that's the one offset from the post. So the other one was a post and then the offset. Yeah, so good. Not like the old, like it's a 60 kilometer per hour test and it's survivable. Do that at 100. I don't think we can create survivability for a rider hitting things at 100 kilometers an hour at this stage. I mean, that's racetrack level style stuff that you've got to do to get things in those survivability ranges. But really, underrun protection is a good device. We know it's effective. Monash University has evaluated underrun protection in motorcycle safety programs, and it's got good effectiveness. And so that's something you might recommend. Why has it stopped there, though? That's interesting, isn't it? Why did they just continue it all the way up to the end? Anybody got any guesses on that? Peter's on it, and Verdi. Emma, you can give out some prizes there. It's the end terminal. So the end terminal of a barrier system is a specifically designed and tested part of that system. And nobody has tested one of these with any underrun protection connected to it. So we don't know whether it would alter the functioning of that end terminal. So nobody's prepared to do that. And you just don't want it to be that a car hits the end terminal and it doesn't function the way it should. It sort of should concertina on itself and and those specifics. So if you see underarm protection connected to an end terminal, that's probably a road safety issue you'd be flagging. Wire rope safety barrier systems, they get a bad rap often for no real evidence-based reason. It's just some people don't seem to like them from the motorcycle community. The evidence and research around motorcyclists and wire rope safety barrier systems is that the riders are either off the bike and they hit the base, they hit the posts, or they hit the barrier system and they go over the top of it, the same as other barrier types. The wires do not do any slicing of the rider. So that, terms like the cheese cutter and things that get thrown out there are just, it's not true. I mean, it's a graphic image that people remember, but the one thing though that I would say is that I don't think that there is a good retrofit device for us to connect to wire rope systems for motorcycle safety. We have used things like stack cushions, which is it's like a football goalpost padding around each of the posts, essentially is what it is. But of course, like if you're doing that, you're trying to absorb energy. Like a rider sliding hits that. You're trying to use that as cushioning to dissipate energy. That's not going to be as effective as if you could have, a longitudinal thing that they could run along, as you saw in those videos. So there is no underrun longitudinal system for a wire rope barrier at this stage, and I don't think we ever will see one. And the reason I say that is because back when this went in, and even the next photo I'll show you, this went in. This is an interesting one, actually. This is the South Gippsland Highway, and we were working to get a central barrier system down the middle of it. We did get it in there, you can see it. The road safety audit team that did the audit of the design of this came back with concerns of motorcycles interaction with the barrier system. And we were proposing wire rope safety barrier system. First of all, that's interesting. Why do you think the auditors had a particular concern for motorcyclists on this road? Anybody got any ideas on that? Some people, you've kind of probably got to know Victoria a little bit to answer that, if so. The auditors of motorcycles, that's an interesting one. They weren't actually. There we go, Phillip Island. Yep, the MotoGP, well done. Yes, so this is the road down to Phillip Island. And so during, a good few weekends a year, there's just a massive amount of motorcyclists for the GP and then other race events and everything like that. So the auditors had a bit of an understanding of the, this is one where crash history did help them, because they go, oh, wow, okay, what a massive percentage of motorcyclists involved in crashes on this road. And they had that knowledge as well. So they recommended, this, they identified it as an issue. It got a bit of a high risk rating. And they said you could use a different barrier system, a concrete barrier system, or something that could be slid along, or consider something to lessen the severity of crashes like these stack cushions. So back in the day when we're doing this, your choices were wire rope safety barrier, concrete barrier, or type B guardrail, or if you're in other jurisdictions, people call it G4, like just a run-of-the-mill WB. So the W-beam and the concrete are not flexible systems. So they're actually, as I'll there's a lot of injury to vehicle occupants when they hit these systems as well. It's just harder. These are the wire rope systems are soft. So you're really preferring to get a softer system as you can in. So we really were saying, well, no, the benefit for cars is so great in this scenario that we wanted to do that. So that's why we're in it. But nowadays, we would just use a flexible W-beam system. They have been invented since, and they can have underarm protection, and they provide a flexible system, highly effective in terms of vehicles, and have that protection for motorcyclists. So this would be like you'd never design this using wire rope these days. On this particular road, wire rope's still got its place, but and just be aware that rub rail is meant to be set out to run in line with the face of the barrier with a bracket. It's a lot easier for the installers to put it on like that, but it's just less effective. And you've got little sharp bits that stick out. You've got areas where like a leg or an arm could go in those areas. So you want to be thinking about that. And similarly, like where there are bits where arms and legs can go in and blocks like that, I just try and imagine the scenario of the rider sliding and what could happen there, and you can think about that as you order. Speed's very important, as I talked about, and you know that generally in road safety, speed is such a huge influencer on the chance of crashes and the severity of crashes when they do occur. And we can influence rider speed in all sorts of ways, not just the speed limit, but also things like providing good advisory delineation, advisory speed signage. We really want to ensure the consistency of these. So if you're asked to do an audit of a route and you're thinking about motorcyclists, you could ball bank indicator it as an audit team. Pop the ball bank indicator in your vehicle. Check that you've got consistency on the advisory speeds. You don't need to do that. You may just drive it and go, "Ooh, okay, that one was a little bit sharper. Was that appropriately signed and warned?" And there is a thing that's often talked about and done. It's called a motorcycle audit. So it is a road safety audit, but the differences are that you get a rider involved. Sometimes the rider is a road safety auditor themselves. Sometimes it's just somebody who's been pulled in as a rider, and then they ride the route. Sometimes you mic up their helmet and they're talking to a trailing car full of auditors and saying, "Oh, yeah, that curve was a bit tighter. Oh, yeah, this one seems to have, adverse crossfall," and so you get some good dialogue. You're stopping along the way, chatting about bits and pieces, getting the rider's insight. So that's kind of the methodology for that. And then you produce your report. And here's an example one. We had a rider out there. She was talking to us in the trailing car, telling her issues. We was looking at we're looking at those issues, but other things. This one, we just happen to be worried about the back of the central barrier system there. So a rider, if they got pushed into there by a car, maybe merging and not seeing them because they're smaller, they snag on the back of those posts. And so we've got a sheet in there about thematic audits for motorcyclists, so you can have a look at that and get some tips and tricks if you're going to do one of those motorcycle audits. I'm happy to provide you with some info on our website. Actually, we've got a 5-minute video on motorcycle auditing, which you can have a look at if you're asked to go and do one of those or get involved in one of those. Now, how are we going on time here, Marissa? What have we got?
Yeah, we've still probably got about 50 minutes till we need to start talking about the assignment.
Okay. Well, I will just go through this couple of case studies. I'll probably only take 10 minutes at most, so we might even be able to give people a little bit of time back. But I will ask for everybody's input. Now you're doing a motorcycle safety audit of the existing conditions of this very popular motorcycle route, one of the most popular motorcycle routes in Australia, actually. It is the Great Ocean Road. So pop it in the chat. What are you seeing? What are you seeing that are issues for riders? Buddy's coming with sand, gravel on the road. That is good. Yeah, so the slippery surface there. Yeah, so if somebody's pointing out the end terminals are no good, that's going to be for both vehicles and riders aren't going to have. No, not good curve warning, the wall, the delineation's bad. Somebody in there, Edward's nicely thinking about tourists and all the different driving things that could happen. Lots of good answers there. Well done. So let's see what happened after the audits. So this is an interesting one. I mean, the audit was one of the ways that the team doing project development work found issues and came up with ways to rectify it. So auditing was used as part of that, whole development of a project cycle, which was really, really good. And that's a really great outcome. Yeah, there was money spent there, as you can see. But it's you got that good speed advice, got good line marking, no longer can overtake on the blind curve, sealing that pullover area, connecting up the barrier underrun. There's still a few challenges there. So you've got the rock faces and those sorts of things, but it is a much better scenario. Let's have a look at this last one. So this is a brand new roundabout, but maybe you got in there at design stage. So maybe you can try and imagine this as a design and you're thinking about hazards for motorcyclists. So you can see that there. There's another little view of it there. Any hazards you could see there for riders that you might want to have a think about? Yeah, so I've got a few good things there. Yeah, so some people are pointing out the barrier and doesn't have underrun protection. So that's good. Okay, somebody's pointed that out. And Marissa, I'll let you work out who that is. It looks like it's a username there. So Chevron sign on the roundabout there. So that's that sign killed a motorcyclist pretty early on after this roundabout was built. And yeah, the placement of it's a little bit out of where you'd probably have it. It's not too far out because you try and put those there's a spot you put them to capture headlight. However, this is also on the South Gippsland Highway, and we did see those other audits on those other works were very much saying, let's do the best we can for motorcyclists. So that's kind of where we might start to consider flexible sign ranges. Underrun protection is a good one. Yeah, and trying to think about the mud and the gravel on there. So this is where we trialed some flexible products and some different underrun stuff, which was okay. Well, there's a young me bending one of the signs down to show that it's a flexible sign. Yeah, and they're a bit of a maintenance disaster, those ones. I don't recommend them, but yeah. All right, I think that's probably enough there. I'll just go on for days and days on motorcycle safety stuff. Marissa, these people want to get their assignment and they want to get out and do some auditing.
All right, well, let's take them through. I'll share my screen now. We'll have a look. Is that working for you? Can you see?
Yeah, I can see the learning management system.
All right, fantastic. All right, so down into module 4, we've got here complete your road safety audit site visit. So basically we have allocated you all a site, which you can see here. There's a list of PDFs and we've got all the names allocated there. So have a look and find what site you've been allocated. Hopefully it's not too far from where you work or your home location. So basically we're giving you about 2 weeks from today. I think we've got it due on the 25th of May to go out and get to the site and conduct a road safety inspection there. And then we'll get you to come back and develop your audit report. We do have a template up here. If you have a look at this RSA template, we do have this audit report we've provided you with. I'll just show you that one. And all right. So basically anything highlighted in yellow is what you need to fill in. You are very much welcome to complete this in a team. If you have colleagues that have been allocated to the same site, you're most welcome to complete that together. There is a section where you can pop in who's completed the report with you. Let me know if I pass it. If I've passed it, Ken. You are welcome to complete that with a team, but we do require you to submit your own report. So have a look at all the highlighted sections, and that's what you need to populate there. Do you want to add anything there about the report itself, Ken?
Yeah. So we're seeing the learning management system still. I don't know if you've popped up the report yet, or do you want me to open up the report?
Oh, okay. You're not seeing that? Yeah, I did, but it looks like it's not working.
Another screen, is it?
Yeah, let me try that again.
I'll do it actually, because I've got it open here, okay. And I'll just talk people through this, and then we'll jump back to you, and you can tell them how to upload it and when it's due and all that. So in there, Marissa's just showing you where you download that and you find your design. Now, that's a key important thing for you to remember here. You are undertaking a road safety audit of a design. This is stuff that they're planning to build, and what you're trying to do is find any issues with what they're planning to build that could be unsafe or anything once it's built. So you're going to go out to the site, but you're going to look at the site from the perspective of, okay, let's now imagine that there's a set of traffic signals at this intersection. There's currently not traffic signals, but we imagine when those signals are built and it's operating, what are the issues? What are the dangers? What are the challenges? So you put in a name of that. Now it says assignment 3 here, but it's actually assignment 2. We used to have a second assignment that we required in this course, but we got it approved to get rid of that because it was just too much work in the course. So you don't need to update any of this. By the way, you're welcome to take this as a template, rebrand it, delete our branding, use your own branding and colors and everything like that. The important thing is we're all in industry consistent with all of this in how we do our audits, okay? So you don't need to update any of that. If you use any abbreviations, you put them in. You can give us a brief background and a snip of the site location. It can be brief, few things to put in there. Don't update, just the stuff. So tell if it's got a drawing number, write it on there. It may not have it, just say, none provided or no number. Okay. You are not doing a nighttime inspection. It's a training course. Admitted, we're not getting you to go out there at night, just during the day. And you can say where it is and when you went. Put your name in there, road safety auditor in training. You can leave that blank if you want, or you can put your employer. You give a short description of the existing conditions. You can do an overarching bit of commentary about what some of the issues you found. you're going to sign the report. You haven't even put the findings yet. We have these in the appendix, but you put a photo of yourself at the site. So replace me with you wearing a high-vis vest at the site. We require you, or we are required to have you visit a site as part of a road safety audit course, and you need to prove to us that you did that. And so this is the actual audit, the meat of the audit, okay? And we want you to find us 3 issues only 3. I know some of you are going to find lots and lots and lots of issues that you want to write down. We will only read your first 3. So yeah, I wouldn't bother wasting any more time because we're only going to read the first 3 and mark you on those. There is an example here. This is the kind of thing we would be looking for. You leave this blank because that's always there, but it's left for whoever would receive the report in a real audit. So you write your issue, maybe you put a snippet of the design in, maybe you put a photo from the site if you think that helps articulate the issue, and you do 3 of those. Okay. So Marissa, do you want to take over again and show everybody where they would upload it, and maybe we'll even download one of those designs for.
Sure. All right, you can see that.
Yep.
So just like you did with the Module 1 research topic, under Module 4, we've got complete your road safety audit site visit. So if you just click on that link, further down below is where, oh, sorry, I'm in admin mode. Let me jump over to student mode. Complete your road safety audit site visit. And down the bottom, you'll see add submission. So if you just add in submission.
Hang on. We're
it's not working again.
Okay. Yeah, we're still seeing the admin.
All right. Sorry, what's happening with my screen? Let's try this again. How about now? Can we see that?
Yep. There you go. Okay. And you've got an area. Yeah.
Lovely IT. All right. So let's jump back one. So under Module 4, complete your road safety audit site visit. And if we scroll down, here are all of your sites. If you scroll down, you've got add submission here. So just clicking on add submission and just popping in, just drag and drop your report into there. We do have a 100 megabyte file size limit. I'm sure you probably won't go over that, but just good to know. So yeah, maybe any issues? Yep.
Maybe just click on one of those designs randomly. It doesn't matter which one. I just want people to sort of see, and I can talk to it. So here you, whoa.
Did that show up?
No, you stopped sharing. There it is. Okay, yeah. So here you go. It's well, it looks like an intersection that's currently unsignalized, and they're planning traffic signals and some islands and a bit of lane configuration. So what you're going to do for this one is that you'd go, okay, I know where that is. Yep, that's good. That's just down the road. You're going to look at this design. You're going to go out there. You're going to look at how it exists now, and it doesn't have all of that. You're going to imagine it's there, and then you're going to ask yourself a whole lot of questions about, oh, okay, well, and how do pedestrians get across the road now? How do cyclists get through here? Are cars going to be able to see those signals as they're approaching? You know, wonder how this will go during wet weather. Yeah, and the list goes on of questions you might be asking yourself to find those specific issues. And in fact, in the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which we have in the resource folder, at the back of that, you have those prompt questions, and you would go to like the preliminary design check prompt list or concept design prompt list, and it would guide you with a whole lot of questions if you want to utilize that. Marissa, if you go back to the safe work method statement, so we're going to go back one.
Still just checking that's not Is that still working for you?
Yep. So this is, we just want to ensure you're safe when you go to do this site visit. We've checked all the sites that you can go there, you can be safe. You're just observing the the existing conditions. You're not measuring, you don't need to measure lane widths or anything like that. You're just looking at how it operates now or what users are there and those sort of things. And so we've got this safe work method statement, which is just a thing for you to ensure that you're doing your part in terms of safety, and we've risk assessed the sites ourselves. It really says some simple stuff like, you're not going to go out there intoxicated, and you're not going to be a hazard yourself. And so your only quiz question, I think, for this session is a one-question quiz. Is it a one-question quiz? It says
for the agreement.
Oh, sorry, that's the agreement. Yeah, so you just need to say, yep, I agree that I will do my part and follow what's in that safe work method statement. And there is one quiz, but is it just how many wallies? I reckon it might be
just how many wallies. It is how many wallies. So is everyone paying attention?
Yeah, there were lots of wallies today.
Giving away the answer, Matt.
I think that's, I think if you use, is that Matt, is it? I think if you use Matt's answer, you're going to get 0 points off that one. Okay. So there's quite a bit sort of out of this. So you've got to put in your Wally one. You've got to do the safe work method statement agreement. You've got to download your design, download the Word document, do the audit, PDF it, upload it. How long have they got?
You've got 2 weeks. 2 weeks. The assignment is due on the 25th, so that will be a week after, 2 weeks from today, and a week after your final session next week. So our final session will be next Thursday. We don't have a session on Tuesday, so you do have the next week to get out there and do your site visit. And we do have, the date is a week, 2 weeks from today anyway. And Max, you won't be here next week presenting Module 5, will you? Sorry, Ken, Max will be.
Yes. Max will be doing that. And he's going to do a bit of live auditing with you to give you a bit of practice in auditing. So you'll get sort of like, some good practice, and then you'll finish off your audit. Now, really, we have absolutely honed this down to make it as condensed as possible, so you can just prove to us you understand auditing. Really, I'm hoping this can all be tied up within a couple of hours, and you'll get your 3 issues. They'll be nicely written up using the formula, nice little snip of the design or a photo in there, well worded, good recommendations, categorizing your recommendations, primary, supporting, and package that up, put it in, and then one of our team will mark that. They'll provide you feedback. If you if you get over 80%, you'll still get some feedback probably, because there's always usually little bits and pieces people can improve on. If you get under the 80%, they'll give you feedback. You'll take it back, you'll adjust it based on the feedback and resubmit it, and then that will hopefully get you above 70. Of course, if you were to say get that feedback and go, oh, I don't understand it, you get in contact. We organize a one-on-one catch up with you. And also, if you just get your design and you can't find any issues, reach out. We'll get in there with you. We'll look at the design. We'll give you a few hints and things that you might want to consider and look at, and that'll hopefully help you along the way. So don't be shy in reaching out. Just email that training@safesystemsolutions.com.au, and somebody will be on to addressing that very quickly. Anything you think we've missed, Marissa?
No, I think you've covered everything. good. Yeah, like you said, any questions, let us know. We'll be happy to help you out.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you 9 minutes back, and you can utilize that time to, do the little quiz and get some other stuff sorted out. So you're ready to get in there. Actually, no, wait, I forgot something.
Wait, there's more.
I want to give out some prizes for people's research assignments.
Research topics, yes.
I didn't do that, did I, for this group?
I don't think you did. Let's give some out. I'll pick one from behind me and throw it through there.
Yeah. Throw it at the computer. Prizes are going to Don, Robin, Tom, Paul, and Ed. All for, okay, so I wanted to give so many people prizes because I was loving what people were producing, well thought through stuff. Those particular ones had some extra special effort, and on a few of those particular ones, I laughed out loud quite a few times. So you're going to put all of those into a folder so everybody can see them at some point, are you?
Yeah, well, I've already done. I'll show you where you can find that. I've already done that one. If you have a look under our resources, we've got a folder there, research assignments, and we've downloaded all of your assignments, and they are all there for you to have a look at. So feel free to browse.
Yeah, so I mean, they're fun to have a look at. Some of them pretty creative and funny stuff people have done, which I loved. And but it's a good way to just go, oh, I wonder what an anti-gawk screen is, and you can have a quick look at that, and then you see what that is. And it's a nice little few resources for you. So well done to everybody on that assignment. Well done, and especially those ones that got the extra little bit. You just get a prize for that. So hopefully you got all those names. Did you, Marissa?
Absolutely, got them down.
Thank you.
Special
Have a good
prizes.
weekend, everybody. Good luck
Hey,
with your auditing.
everyone. See you next week.
Bye.